This is Ahead in Tech, career journeys of extraordinary people in tech and interviews that help you get ahead in your tech career. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm here today with Dan Budd. Dan, good afternoon to you, sir. How are you?
Afternoon. Good morning. Good morning to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thanks. We're kind of on different sides of the world. We were once together a few months ago when we originally planned this, and now we're apart.
Yes, yeah. And I've traveled sort of halfway around the world as well in the time that we've taken to sort of prepare and organize this.
Yeah, a lot's happened. You know, we were spry young 20-year-olds.
Yes.
Look at us now, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So today is going to be about Dan's life and career. Dan started off as a web developer around about 20 years ago now, had a few years in web dev.
Yeah, it's about 20 years ago. Yeah.
Cool. And then you moved
Well.
into educating and teaching. And I mean, that doesn't really do you justice. You've got a lot of grand titles, but at the heart of it, you're an educator. You teach kids how to code now. And that's what I'm going to be asking you about.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I suppose we're all educators at some point of our lives, whether you're parents or even working in industry. I think there's always a little bit of training that goes into everyone's jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. You're basically doing the job of like a senior developer to 20 or 100 people every day, right?
Yeah. I suppose. I think some of my projects are a little more low stakes than maybe a senior developer, but I think essentially the similar sort of skills.
Yeah, cool. But some of your projects are amazing, and I'm gonna ask you about that a bit later on. And you're now teaching computer sciences and robotics at a really prestigious school in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong International School, where you've got, I suppose, the sky's the limit. You've got almost infinite funding. You teach the best of the best. You make the most awesome curriculum you could possibly make. Is that right? Am I on the right tracks?
Well, I'm sure there's always a couple more toys I'd like to buy, but funding in terms of where we're at now, it's a fantastic school. As you mentioned, we've got a great demographic. I prefer a couple more Australians within my clientele, but I do tolerate the Americans. And, really enjoy my time here at HKS.
Brilliant. So let's go back to the beginning. Talk me through how you make that transition from web dev into being an educator and what that's like, and walk me up to now.
Sure. So I got into web development when I was doing my undergraduate degree in computer science, sort of my second year of uni. I was always into web design throughout high school. I suppose that's where my passion for teaching sort of started off. I had a teacher who gave me the opportunities to learn myself. The curriculum isn't what it is today. A lot of it was desktop publishing and Microsoft front page and all that sort of stuff. But he allowed me to explore JavaScript and HTML and sort of gave me the free time within the lessons and opened up the lab at lunchtime to explore my passions. And I suppose later on, it wasn't until I realized that that's what I try and do with my students. But I moved into web development in my second year of university. I was sort of managing my own clients and had a portfolio up and running, and then I moved towards a large advertising firm in Perth, Western Australia, where I took on larger sort of SharePoint development projects and large CMS implementations and things like that.
So what motivates your move into teaching then?
So I suppose there's a couple of things. I was chasing the money, I suppose, like most ambitious young people. And I think where I was as a senior developer, I was sort of stuck in a place where there was nowhere really to sort of go or develop, especially within Perth. We didn't have large, super large sort of advertising agencies like you do in London. So it's kind of a case of moving to London and pursuing that. Or as I did, I sort of moved into sales and marketing as I moved up through the ranks of development. And as a choice of whether I started my own company and sort of went down that route or look for something different. And I suppose through frustration and working with a couple of companies I wasn't happy with or a couple of contracts I wasn't happy with, my parents sort of suggested, why not try teaching? And they were both university lecturers at the time, university professors. So I thought, I'll give it a go. I was out of work at the time, so I did my qualifications whilst I was finishing off my master's, and moved into teaching and really loved it.
So I suppose your career is a byproduct of your ambition, which no one could fault you for, and a product of the times, I guess, because then it was not tech is not the career that it is now, I guess.
Yeah, so I suppose I never sort of found that paycheck I was looking for,
Right.
but I certainly found the stability and real fulfillment in my job and what I actually do.
Mm.
It's definitely a career where you can see the impact of your work, whereas I think that's not always the case when you're sort of working behind the scenes in development. So,
Mm.
yeah, it's something I'm really enjoying. I'm really thankful that I came down this path in the long run.
It must be very rewarding, I guess, to have that kind of impact, on really young lives and help mold them.
Yeah, well, today's the first day back after haven't seen these kids for 3 months now, and it's fantastic to see their faces. Hear about I set up some internships for some kids over the break working in data science, and they were just telling me all about it and how excited they are and the things they want to try this year and explore. So,
Mm.
yeah, I think it's not something I thought about initially moving into teaching, but it's definitely something which I found to love.
Mm. That's, I suppose, you either have that draw in you or you don't. I guess people will know if this is the kind of career for them, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I wouldn't go as philosophically and sort of say that it's like a religious calling or anything. I do think that teaching is a trade. It's a skill. It's something that can be taught.
Mm.
But I think we do have it in us. I mean, if you have your own kids or nieces and nephews, you know the sort of patience that's involved with students. I mean, unlike the patience you have with a client, at least I can yell at my students and send them out of the room. You can't really do that with clients. So the patience isn't always exhibited, but yeah, I think certainly it's something that can be learnt. I think it is a rewarding career, and I think it takes all types as well. I think students also appreciate the diversity that they have a young teacher like myself who treats them differently from an older teacher and teaching different methods. So I think that diversity in teaching is also good for kids as well.
Mm. And it's actually kind of important to encourage more men to go into teaching, right? Because it's quite a skewed demographic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think more so in primary teaching. I think there seems to be a lot more female teachers in that space. I've certainly worked for a lot of female leaders, which has been fantastic. But I think it is becoming more and more attractive. I know, particularly at our school, we've got a lot of male maths and science teachers, which is great.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, anywhere we can strike a balance is always good.
Mm. Great. You've got a lot going on. I mean, you do a lot of speaking, you're an author, you do a lot of other podcasts, and you put your own content out there. You make lots of amazing tutorials. Can you give me a sense of all the things you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So previously, I was director of IT for a large Catholic school in Perth before I moved to Hong Kong. So as a part of that, I was doing a lot of I suppose change management, looking at changing cultures, encouraging teachers to use technology. So through that, I got involved with Apple from a content development point of view, but also sharing the story of schools and our successes, which led me to doing a bit of speaking. I managed to get a scholarship for Worldwide Developers Conference. So that sort of kicked off things and allowed me to develop a couple of programs and I suppose teaching courses, which has now sort of catapulted me into that space. But yeah, I develop a lot of materials for my students, which I post and make freely available. I'm so appreciative of the online communities that are there to help me learn. My students are always pushing me to say, "Oh, I heard about this new library, and I've got to learn it myself before I can teach the kids and seem like an expert." So I just try and give back in that way, I suppose, to all the people who put their time and money into developing resources.
Yeah, we are very lucky in our industry, aren't we? We've all benefited from everyone giving us so much knowledge for nothing, right?
Yeah, where would we be without Stack Overflow?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't remember if it was you or someone else that said this to me recently, but to teach kids, you need to know 150% of the material. Like you need to really be an expert in the tech.
I don't think that was me because I wouldn't proclaim to be that at all. like I was saying to you before in the beginning, I had that teacher in high school who gave me the opportunity. And I think sometimes teachers used to be the experts in the room, but I think now we've got Google. I don't think there's any way you could claim to be the expert, whether you're, I don't know, debating over historical events or whatever you're trying to do. I think being vulnerable and being open, and giving students the understanding that you don't always know everything, and to have a thirst for knowledge and the ability to learn is much more important than being that sort of sage on the stage. So I wouldn't proclaim to be the expert in anything. I think just being open to learning new things, and that's what I share my passion for learning with students and encouraging them to go in different directions and seek that out.
On the importance of teaching kids how to code or just encouraging them to go into STEM careers, this is, a fairly recent thing. It's only maybe been in the last 10 years that there's been such a push, right? So where are we at now?
I think computer science is a very attractive career, but what I see a lot in our school in particular, we have a lot of students who go to, the Berkeleys and the Stanfords and those sort of schools. The students tend to see computer science as the be all and end all. And the approach I'm trying to come at is that computer science is a fantastic double degree. It's a fantastic add-on to business, marketing, medicine, research, all those sort of things have applications for computer science or IT as a general sort of term. To sort of think of it as an add-on. And I think that's where I've seen success in drawing more students in, is to look at it as an add-on to your portfolio of skills. Something which, if you're interested in biology, then look at the fantastic work that's happening with CRISPR. And where would we be with CRISPR if we didn't have computer science? Or if you're interested in research, if you're going to crunch data, you've got to know some Python, you've got to understand data structures. So I think that's had more of an impact, particularly in drawing students in. Here at Hong Kong International School, I actually sit within the visual arts and design department, which is how I got introduced to you through our mutual friend, Tracy.
Yeah.
So all of my courses are actually mapped to the visual arts course standards, not computer science standards. So I don't test students on what is an if statement or what is a function or how to use a function. What we're really looking at is that product and process. So the language is a tool for them to create something, but really what I'm looking at is that thought process, the research that goes into it, and their final product and critique on that, which is a very different approach that not many schools have taken on.
Well, it seems to be working very well for you there. And I think that's a great outlook, because it is just a really another strong skill set to have to help you achieve what you want to achieve, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, another tool in the belt.
Yeah. And the world's becoming very entrepreneurial. More and more of today's kids will grow up to be entrepreneurs and start startups and stuff. And having these skills is quite important, right?
Yeah, definitely. And in our fundamentals course, it surrounds a Dragon's Den type pitch or Shark's Tank, whichever one you're a fan of. But basically allowing students to understand the process of how an app is built, the technology that goes into it, but also how to tell a story and how to sell what you're actually trying to create. So I suppose that's where my advertising marketing brain sort of comes in as well, to sort of build in that technology mindset.
And where are we in terms of sort of push versus pull? Like, do you have to really push students to get into learning anything STEM related? Are they more eager for it now?
No, I think there's sufficient marketing out there for advocating for STEM. And I think 5 years ago, if I said STEM to parents, they would have no idea what I'm talking about. But I think parents are really seeing it as a valuable skill. But now it's just trying to make sure that it's not just one class they're doing, that it's something that they're actually thinking about and trying to pursue past high school. So it's not just we must do an English class, or we must do fundamentals of mathematics. It's taking it beyond there and sort of exploring it a bit further as a viable tool for their future career.
In our industry and worldwide, we're trying to get more diverse and equally distributed workforces. Where are you seeing that in your classroom as well? How are we in terms of a gender balance?
Definitely. So I've had. I mean, I wouldn't say that we're in a very privileged school. So I don't think I can speak for all sort of demographics and socioeconomic situations. But within our school, we've seen a 200% increase in class numbers since I've sort of started these programs, and I've got 30% more girls in the school as well, in the classes. Sorry, which is fantastic. So yeah, I mean, my classes are now full, so we've had to get some of the fundamental classes taught by one of the other teachers, and we're sort of building up more and more, which is fantastic.
That's great. Well, it's great to hear, that we're getting more girls into coding, or at least giving them the
Mm.
skills to then, go on to be mathematicians or entrepreneurs or scientists, whatever they want to
Yeah.
be.
I mean, I'm a little bit more scared about the future because they're much more logical than men. They're a lot more patient,
Yeah.
and I'll give two students the same task, and the boy will say, I'm done. You say if we're doing an informatics problem which requires looking at the speed of the algorithm, the boy will be like, yep, done, 80%. That's really good, and the girl will keep going at it till she gets 100%. So
Yeah.
I'm quite scared for the future. What these solutions will look like. They're going to take over, really. It's fantastic to see, and the different thought process, and that's the advocation for diversity, is having different thoughts in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes us all better, it makes society better as well, right?
Definitely.
So, what kinds of things? Because I was reading some of the material you're putting out there, and I was like, wow, this is the kind of tutorial that I might take if I was going into machine learning or like data science. And your stuff is mainly based around Swift, although you'll teach broad concepts. What sort of things are you
Yeah.
teaching kids now?
Yeah, so I suppose a lot of the materials that I publicize are in Swift, obviously with my connection with Apple. The school does also teach Java as a part of the AP program, so AP Computer Science A. I teach Java. We do robotics, which is in C++. And for data science last year, we were doing Python. So we do other languages. Swift is just the core language. I believe it's worth knowing something well, and I think it's a good language which has strict syntax but not too strict. I think Python can be a little bit loose sometimes, and then Java can be a little bit the other way, a little bit more strict. So I think it strikes a nice balance, and we can do nice visual things which draws in everyone. So we do teach other languages as well there.
Cool.
But yeah, so I think Swift also works well. That a lot of these technologies are very approachable. So things like machine learning, like augmented reality, the frameworks and the libraries are available to make it very accessible for students. And I remember when I first started teaching, I was in a K to 12 boys' school, and I was teaching the exact same thing in year 4 as I was in year 9, the exact same class. And it's just about when students are introduced to these things. So they're flying because they've had years of opportunity to explore code. They can go onto YouTube and learn the fundamentals. They can go on Code Academy or Khan Academy to fill in the gaps. So I think the internet's really helped with that in accelerating students' abilities.
Mm. And they're just so much more comfortable and surrounded by technology, right? I guess it's like you say, if you get them into it early, they just start flying.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know a lot of parents complain about screen time, and screen time's become a bit of a taboo subject. I know in UK schools, in Australia, during the Rudd government, all schools actually got funding for a one-to-one laptop program. I know that similar things have happened in some states in the US. I know the UK didn't quite get that funding, but it's about using the devices correctly, limiting screen time and assessing what screen time is. Not all screen time is equal. Are the students working on building a game, or are they playing a game? It's two completely different activities. So I think putting the devices in the students' hands has really assisted with that. And I know in this particular school, all of my students have a MacBook, so I can point them in the right direction or send them on a course, and they'll do it.
You seem like a fantastic teacher and a fantastic person. I'd love to take one of your classes, if that was ever possible. Maybe I can speak to Tracy.
Yeah, come for a visit.
So what is it like in terms of the hours? Because I'm sure this is completely unfair, but a lot of people say, well, teachers get X number of months of holiday every year. How hard can it be? What sort of how do you sort of place that work-life balance?
Well, I can definitely tell you now. I've got a daughter now who's 2.5 years old, so I can definitely say that I've tried to pull back on the amount that I'm doing and try and find a bit more of a work-life balance. That was part of the reason for me moving to Hong Kong to international teaching. We have very generous teaching loads here compared to the UK and Australia, and I also live on campus, so I've got no commute, so that helps me as well. But in terms of the workload, it's very full on. I can remember when I was working in industry, there's no long lunches in teaching. Sometimes you're working through your lunch. If a kid's got a problem, you're working. You've got to learn to control your bladder because sometimes you're going full tack throughout the day. So when it gets to holidays, often you'll catch a cold and you'll be out for a week, and then you've got to do prep for the next term. So you sort of fall in a heap at the end of each term, but it's also never boring. Like you're never sitting there thinking, what should I do next? Weeks, months, terms, years just fly by. And I always thought, how could these teachers stay here for like 25 years? We literally just did some farewells for one of the administrators, but the years just fly past, and you don't believe it until you're there. So I think, first of all, holidays are well deserved. I moved into a central office where I didn't have teaching, and it came up to the holidays, and my friends would text me saying, you don't have holidays, but I didn't need them. I'd sort of roll in at 9 o'clock, and then I'd go get a coffee, and then I'd go have a meeting, and it wasn't the same sort of pace. But then in my holidays is when I do my research and development. It's when I'm, catching up on YouTube videos, and I've always sort of got my laptop on my lap at home while we're, watching the latest episode of Ted Lasso or something, and cranking away and sort of figuring out problems. So I think it's a different beast, and it's very hard to compare to other industries. I wouldn't say it's for everyone, but it certainly is interesting.
I mean,
and then every school's different, right? Like I've got highly academic students, so I've got a lot of pressure for like a kid's working on a piece of code and they can't figure it out for 3 weeks. They're going to come to me, and then I've got to try and figure it out and then scaffold it in a way that they understand it. Whereas other teachers will have more discipline issues or motivation issues, or all sorts of things. So every school's different, every student's different.
Sounds really tough. I don't think it's the gig for me. I prefer the long lunches and long coffee breaks. Thanks.
Yeah. I often my brother works in Hong Kong as well, and I often debate with him when I'm feeling a bit down. I'm like, maybe I should just go work in IT industry, just be like a project manager or something. And he's like, no, you can't do that. Like, it's worth it. Think about it. And I've just come off almost 3 months holiday because we lost some holiday in between. So we got a bit tacked on. And when you're on holiday and 2 paychecks come in and you haven't worked, it kind of feels like it's worth it. But I don't know. I often think that as well, especially when you see some of those IT executive salaries.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they work for it as well.
Yeah. But there's something that you get that they can't get, right? It's this particular reward.
Exactly. And that's really what keeps you in the teaching in the end is, when I come back from summer holidays and the kids are so excited to see you. Again, I remember working in an office and you take a week off because you're sick. And everyone's coming back like, where have you been? Look at all this work we've got to do. And it wasn't until I was teaching and I came back and all the kids were generally like, are you okay? Like, you've been away for a full week. Like, they're actually concerned about your well-being, not just because your workload has slipped.
That's nice. That's nice to hear.
So it is nice.
Do you have any words of advice for anyone who's in tech who might be contemplating a career as an educator?
Yeah, definitely. There's a huge shortage of passionate computer science or technology or business teachers. So, I mean, I think if you've ever considered it, I think it's worth giving it a try. If you've already got an undergraduate degree, then it's only sort of a 1 year or 1.5 year commitment to get your qualifications to get teaching. But even in technical colleges, we have TAFE in Australia. I'm not sure what it's called in the UK, where you don't need the same sort of qualifications, but we're crying out for instructors, technical coaches. Even running a boot camp or something like that is beneficial for the industry. Hopefully, it will make you feel good, and it's a way to test the waters to see if this really is for you. But I would say, yeah, we need more qualified, passionate computer science educators. So go for it.
Brilliant. And maybe they can reach out to you for some advice if they need it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Awesome, Dan. You have been fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. I'm so happy we got to do this. This has been amazing.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. It's nice to talk at it from a different perspective, from more of an IT industry perspective. But yeah, thanks very much for your time. It was lovely to talk to you.
My pleasure. And if you ever want to come into engineering, let me know. I'd love to work with you, man.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let you know once I burn out.
Yeah, when you're burnt out and you've had enough and you're ready for an easy life and a big paycheck, let me know.
Yeah, we'll do. Definitely.
All right, but before I let you go, I need the joke of the show.
Sure. So it took me a little while to sort of go through the banks, and I was trying to think of one that was IT related. So how many programmers does it take to screw in a light bulb?
I don't know. How many programmers does it take to screw in a light bulb?
None. It's a hardware issue.
Okay, it's a hardware issue. Nice one. Thank you, Dan.
No problem.
And that's all, folks. More info, links, and everything else can be found on aheadintech.com. Thank you, and please subscribe.